Okay, we're up to the Mishnah on Daf Yud Tes Amid Aleph. We're going to discuss with what you can write a get and on what you can write a get. Little technical. The Chol Koisvin, you can write a get with any bidayoi. These will be described in the Gemara. We met dayoi in Masech the site. It's the black ink that's used for writing. Bisam, right? We'll see what sam is. Sam is some type of ornament. I don't know what exactly it is, but sam, sikra, some red ink, bekumis, tree sap, bekankantum is black shoe polish. Anything that will go ahead and be permanent. In Koisvin, you can't write loy b'mashkin, not with fruit juice. Loy b'mei mashkin, fruit that is soaked in water. Loy b'mei peris, no, the fruit juice itself. And we'll see what this comes to include. When time you say kol davar, it comes to include something. Ala kol koisvin, you write on everything. Ala ola shel zayis, you can write on the leaf of a zayis. You can write on the leaf of a zayis. Ala keren shel para, and you can write on the horn of a cow. The nois para. Now the ola shel zayis, it has to be something that it's disattached. Remember, you can't write on something that is mechuber. Because if something is connected, if it's mechuber, then you're going to have an action between the nesina and the ksiva and the nesina. It says the chosav sefer krisis v'nosan biyada, and we can't have. It has to be the chosav v'nosan. You write and you give, as opposed to the chosav v'kotzatz v'nosan. So when it says you can write on the alei of a zayis, it has to be when it's disattached, when it's tolush, as Rashi tells you in the Mishnah. Telusha. On the para, even when it's attached, you could write it and you give over the para. Al yad shalev, you could write the get on the hand of a servant, of a slave, the nice evan, and give over the slave. Rabbi he disagrees with the latter, the last few piskei halachos. In kaisrun lo yal davar sheish b'ruach chayim, you can't write on something that has life, so you wouldn't be able to write on an evan or on a para. And therefore you won't be able to write on a leaf of a olive. You won't be able to write on that either, because there are people that would, in fact, eat that. So therefore you would not be able to write on that. Says the Gemara. We're going to go again, going through the various things that you could write with. Dayai is the use is black ink. Sam, but sam is sama, it's paint. Sikra, what sikra? Amarav is sikra, said sometimes red dye. Shema. Kumis is kuma, is tree sap. Kankantum, Amar Rabba Barbachana, Amar Shmuel, Charsa the Ushbachi, it's shoe polish. It's shoe polish. All these things you could write with. Ubechol Davish and Miskayim, and you could write with anything that will stay, with some permanence. Lasuyimai, what does this rule come to include? Lasuyu Hadutani Rab Chanina. Chasvu b'mei tarya, if you go ahead, write with rainwater, you write with rainwater. The aftsa, or with gall nuts, you write with these things kasha, it would be kasha because they are considered davashu shekayama. Harabchia, kasvu ba'avar, if you write with lead, b'shachar with charcoal, ub'shichra, and with boot black, kasha, itmar. Hamava dayoy gabi sikra, if someone goes ahead, you have red ink, and now you're going to go ahead and you're going to write on top of it. Now we know in Hilchah Shabbos that there's an issue of mechika to be erased, and there's an issue of ksiva to be right. The shear is two oisias, two letters. So you have written on Shabbos, you have red, and now you're going to go ahead and write over it with dayoy. So Amaver dayoy al gabe sirka b'Shabbos, Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, Tamid Shavayu, they're both of the opinion that chayu be chayu. Shtayim, what? Achas mishum kaisev. One, since you're writing with a superior ink as dayoy, that we consider ksiva, and secondly, you're erasing the sikra, you're erasing the red dye when you overcoat it with the red black ink. They both agree that you chayv twice. That's if dayoy on top of red. What about dayoy al gabe dayoy, or sikra al gabe sikra, where there's no improvement and there is no mechika, it basically stays the same? Then pata. What about red? So that was black on top of red, chayv twice. Black on black, red on red, pata. What about the other variable, red on top of black? Sikra al gabe dayoy. What about that? Sikra al gabe dayoy. Red on black. Amalei, imrilas chayiv, imrila pata. Some say you be chayiv, some say you be pata. Imri lechayiv moichiku, because you're being moichik the black, but it's not improving it to be chayiv for kaisav, guys. Guys, it's again, you're being moichik it, but you're not going ahead right, and you're not improving it to be chayiv for kaisav. And imri lapata mekalkohu, because you're being mekalko, you're ruining it. You're ruining the red. Mila, since you're being mekalko, then you'll be pata. Mekalko by Shabbos is pata. Edim that do not know how to go ahead right and sign their names. What about going ahead writing their names in red? Right? And you write and you sign on top of it. It's not considered a ksav. In other words, why do we say the first din, guys? Everyone's maida. If you have red ink and you put black on top of it, you'd be chayiv twice. Once al smoichik and once al koisev. So why don't you do the same thing over here? Then you kasiva by a get, sign the aid's name in red, and since they don't know how to sign, go ahead and put an overlay with black. So just like by Shabbos, it's considered kasiva. Huadim by get, black on top of red should be considered kasiva and it's considered a good signature. Amalei. So he retorted to him. So Rabbi Yochanan said to Reish Lakish, "V'chi mifnei she'onu medamin," because you want to be machmal in Shabbos. Nasa Maisa, should we be makel by get? But just because one, we're going to go ahead and consider what? And consider the ksiva by Shabbos as a chumrah, would we go ahead and use that to be makel by get to say that's considered chasima? So it seems to be by Shabbos is chashash ba'alma, yechoishes v'ksav. Hashem came by get. We want to be makel, you won't go ahead and say that black on top of red should be considered a ksav. Itmar. Eidim again who do not know how to read. We had this Gemara earlier. Rav says mikarin. Rav says you rip. Rashi says misarte. You go ahead and you take a nail and you etch out their name, and then they fill that in with black. Mikarin hem nayar. You etch it out on the paper. Chalak umemalim esakroyim dayay, and you fill it up with dayay. Okay, so let's go back to Tes on the base for a second. And we saw there a machloikis. We saw there a machloikis between the two. What exactly does it mean? So Rashi said over there, Tes on the base, and Rashi says over here that you go ahead, Mekarin, you go ahead and you take the nail and you go ahead and then you scratch it out, and then they put the black on top of it, and you'll see the black will fill in the scratches. If you look at Tosfos, the Karim Lehem Ner Cholak, Pirish Bekuntris Misartin, you go ahead and scratch. And Afagam the Chakika Chashiva Ksiva, even though Chokak, engraving, which is basically what you're doing by scratching out, is considered Ksiva, Kamot Ksava Gabi Tablo Upinkis. If you write they have tablet that was made of wax or a ledger, and you go ahead, take a nail, and you write on that wax. So by having the wax and writing on top of it, you would be creating a word. So he's asking a question over here. If you're going ahead and etching over it with a nail, it's not you're doing the writing. It's not the Adam that come after and fill it with ink. That's the writing. It's you doing the writing. This is what's the Ksav al Gabi Ksav, the Paslin on Perik base. Then kan Ksiva Gemura el Shroish Mekatsas. It's not considered ksiva gemura, except that what you are making a little impression. K'dei lachtem alav edim. Okay, so we want to say that it's a difference over there where you're writing it out, and over here where it's considered basically you're just making a roshim. Black on red is considered ksiva. Linyan Shabbos, afapisha sikra levada hi ksav. Even though sikra alone is considered a ksav. So in other words, it seems to make sense. Just like you have red alone, it's considered a ksav. Yet if you put black on top of it, it's considered a writing. Huadin, if you etch, and even though it's considered like in your business, it's considered a writing. Over here, it won't be considered. It will be considered filling the ink in the black, just like black on top of red would be considered a writing. Black on top of the etched area would be considered a writing. Taisus explaining Rashi's pshat. However, Taisus has a problem with the lashon of mekarin, kuf reish ayin, means to rip. If you wanted to say etch, you should say misaret. Samich Reish Tes. So Tosfos doesn't have a problem in terms of Lumdis because of the red on top of black on top of red, which is considered ksav. Tosfos seems to have a problem with the lashon of the Gemara, that it's the lashon of the Gemara is not mashma, it means misar eshing, because eshing would be misaret, would not be what mikarin. So therefore, says Tosfos, avaloshin mikarin loy mashma kabir sakuntrus tahavi leila mema misartin v'rach pirish shaloichin leyar chalak. You would take a piece of paper, smooth, the koirin olav shemes edim, and you'd rip into it the names of the edim, me'ever le'ever, from one side to the next. Umesimim ma'asay ala klaf. You then put it on top of the parchment. Shaget kasav boy, that it gets written on. Ubo edim the edim kam. Umemalim esakroyim, and they would then fill in the blanks. As kids, remember, you'd have the little ruler with the little etched out the A's and the B's, and you would go ahead and take your pencil and go it in. That would seem to be what they were doing over here. Yerushalmi, yes, like Sav who Pirish, Veina get Yochelis Kain B'Chaysamav, Mashani Kishahirchel Behemes Akroyim Ve'edim, Eimemal Nagame Koyakokrat. Yerushalmi seems to say that you would leave over an area that they would have to fill in themselves. In other words, you'd have you'd have the area, but they wouldn't fill in the whole area. They would fill in an area, and then they leave an area around it, and the Edom would fill in that area. So that seems to be. But anyway, you have Machlokes Rashi and Tosfos over here exactly what you would do. According to Rashi, it's a simply act of scratching and filling it in. According to Tosfos, it's a little more elaborate. According to Yerushalmi, it's even a little more elaborate than that. Yerushalmi being that you wouldn't fill in all the black, you would leave an area around it where the Edom would fill in. Okay, back by us. So again, one more time. Inmar Edom shen yoidim lachtoim rav Omar mekarim lahem niyar chalak umemalem esakroyim dayoy ushmul Omar the aver you use what? You use lead. Now the havamina is you have lead that's soaked in water, which we said before is a good ksiva. So l'chayra, how can you tell me over here that you would write with lead and have Edom right on top of that? We already established that itself is a kasiva. So therefore, the Edom would not. You would be right. You would be signing to get, not the Edom. Right? If you write with lead, b'shocher with charcoal, b'shichra with black, kosher. So l'chayra, if you see that it's a full-fledged writing, so how does that help you? What we need is not writing. We need Edom writing on top of you. Over here, it's already too late because you fulfilled it by writing the lead. Doesn't look like kasha. It's not a problem. When is it not a kasav? When's the eitzah to do this? Is you take a piece of lead and write with the piece of lead. I guess it's interesting because our pencil is lead. It's called a lead pencil for a reason. But it seems that is not considered a kasiva. And it could be maybe it's not a kasiva because you could erase it. That would make a lot of sense, guys, right? Aver is lead. It's erasable, so it's not a ksiva. But Shenkin, if you take water and lead and put it on, then it would not be erasable. That would be a very nice pshat, and one you can understand practically based upon the writing utensils we use in this day and age, right? You can never, for example,
Our pencils are really, it's graphite. It's not. They don't use lead anymore. It's graphite.
So when they call lead pencil, it's just a misnomer. Okay, so then forget my whole pshat then. No, I think okay, forget my whole shot. Okay. Tiyufta the Eliezer is not Tiyufta, but it's fine. I'm good. And now don't talk anymore. So says the Gemara. Okay, so avra, if it have the lead with water in it, it would be very geshmak. Then it stays. Because if the Edom doesn't know how to sign, you would use May Milam. That's walnut soaked in water. But Tani Rav Chanina, Kisu b'meitario of Hafasa Kasha. So you see, again, the same question. It seems to be a full-fledged signing. So how could you possibly go ahead and say, do use this and have Edom right on top of it? Like Kasha, had the Offits, had lo Offits. It would depend whether the shtar was worked over with gallnuts or not. If the star was worked over with gallnuts and then you're writing with gallnuts on top of it, then it's not a kasiva. If it was not worked over with gallnuts and now you're signing with gallnuts, then it is kasiva. So when we say over here that you sign and have the Adam sign on top of the gallnuts, we're speaking about a star that had been worked over with these gallnuts. Because now gallnuts on top of gallnuts. You go ahead and use spittle. And Rapapa taught Rapapa Torah, the ox stealer, Baroik. You go ahead, use Roik, and then have the Adam sign on top of that. Mahani immediately beget. All of this is what is by get. Al b'shtaris loy. By shtaris, you need Adam that are capable of being chaysim. In other words, we're being very makel over here by having Adam that do not know to sign their name. And this all goes into the side that we spoke after Masechta Mishum Iguna Hikil Barabanan. If these are the only Adam we have to the get taking place, and they don't know how to sign their names, so we come up with all these answers, the possibilities of what to do. Use gallnuts, use this, use that, use graphite, use a bunch of different things. Okay, if it's real shtaris and it's a din in Dine Mominis, go ahead and look for good Adam. In other words, go ahead and look for good Adam. So all of these, Hanimili Begitin, all these eights to try to get Adam who don't know how to sign, that's Dafka Yishemiguna Kil Rabbanon, because we want to have Adam available. Avo, however, the shtarais, by regular shtarais, you should go after Adam that are experts and know how to sign their name. Like the Ovid Uvda Bishar Shtarais, that he did this Bishar Shtarais, he didn't look for Adam, but he went through one of the different ways of having signed, either with gallnuts or with lead, or all the things we discussed before. And in that case, what happened, the Nagdir of Kahana using his koyach of Bezdin, he actually gave him Malchus. He gave Malchus for going ahead instead of finding good Adam. Tanya Kabasei the Rav, like that Rav said previously that you rip, according to Rashi, you Masarid, according to Taisus, you rip on Dayoy and have Adam fill it in, right? Where do you see that? The Adam Shein Yodim Lachton, Adam that do not know how to sign their names, Makru Lahem Niyar Cholok, you go ahead and rip or scratch out a Niyar Cholok, Umamalin Esakroim Dayoy. It can't be any more clear than that, right? It can't be any more clear than that, like Rav. Amrav Shem Gamliel. When do we have this heter of doing this feidim is begitei nashim mishum iguna kil b'rabonon. Avo b'shuchrui avodim. When it comes to freeing avodim, with shar kol shtaros or any other shtaros, im yoidim likrois v'lachdoim. If they know how to read and write, read and sign, what is reading popping over here? Chaismin, then lav. If they don't, ain't chaismin. Then you don't sign. Who mentions them? We mentioned reading. We're speaking about signing. We're speaking about aiding. We don't know how to sign. We're speaking about all the various ways to do this. And all of a sudden, you bring who says Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. If they don't know how to read or sign, then by shashtaris they're out. Who mentioned reading at all? And if the Brisa is missing words. Let's fill in the Brisa, and we have an answer, an insight as to why Rabbi Shimon Gamliel mentioned reading. Eidim shen yoidim likrois. That's your extra word. There it is. Eidim that don't know how to read. Chayrin lefneim. You read in front of them. And they would sign. And ones who do not know how to sign, then you go ahead and rip the parchment and fill it in. That we have this heter of reading Adam who don't know how to read is begitei nashim. Again, using the mishum iguna, we'll read it to them. When it comes to feeding avodim, v'shakol shtaris, im yoidim likrois who know how to read v'ich ulachdoim, chaismin. If they're not, they wouldn't be able to sign. My time with Shimon Gamliel. What's the reason? The reason why Shimon Gamliel gave an easy waiver to have the girls have the get read when people don't know how to read is because of Iguna. We don't want to be makel. Amar Rava says Rava. Halacha kerb Shimon Gamliel. Halacha is like Shimon Gamliel that we'd only read and sign by what? By Gitin Nashim. Rav Gamda Mishmei the Rava Amar Ein Halacha. The halacha is not like him. Bel Kaman Kirabanon, right? that you would do this by all shtaris. Who the Ovid Uvda b'shar shtaris v'nagde Rav Kahana. In other words, it seems to be when Gamliel said two dinim. He said, if he doesn't know how to read, you read. If he doesn't know how to sign, you sign. And we said the Allah is like him. Now we're saying the Allah is like the Chachamim. Mashma by all stars, you do the same thing. If by all stars you do the same thing, why in the world is Rav Kahana going ahead and giving Malchus to a person who didn't know how to sign and they signed for him? Says Gemara Kriya. He was going on the Kriya. In other words, that we said that we said that we said that you gave Malchus is where they don't know how to sign. Look at Rashi. Akriya, if they know how to sign their names, even if they don't know how to read, Shapidami. And therefore, when Rav Kana went to give him Malchus, the Kari Kamayu, Achrina, Kirabanan, with Rav Kahana, B'Shein Yoidim Lachtam. They didn't know how to sign their names. So in other words, according to Rabbi Gamliel, by Shashtaris, you need two things. You have to be able to read and you have to be able to sign. According to Chachamim, all you have to be able to do is to read. All you ever have to do is to read. But if you can't sign, no, you have to be able to sign your name, even if you can't read. Again, according to Rabbi Gamliel, you need both by Shashtaris. According to Chachamim, you have to be able to sign, even if you can't read. When did Rav Kahana give Malchus? When they went ahead and the guy wasn't able to sign, and they went through the means of signing, either by ripping it or using some other means, Meimilin on Lafotzim, and so on and so forth. Okay, says the Gemara Rabbi. The Yehuda Mitztayer, Yehuda, what he would force himself. He was old. He would force himself Kari v'Chosim. He'd force himself to read and to sign. You don't have to go ahead and force yourself to read. The Rebbe Loza, Mori the Ari Yisrael. He was the Mori Ari Yisrael. You saw the Gemara in Nida. He was able to see the different hues in the blood, the different colors. And Kari Kamei, he read in front of him v'Chosim. So Rabbi Yehuda, you're old, you can't read. They'd read in front of you and you would sign. Rav Nachman Kari Kamei Safrei Daini v'Chosim. Rav Nachman would be read in front of him, his Dayanim, and he would sign. The Dafka Rav Nachman b'Sifrei Dayani. Dafka Rav Nachman and Sifrei Dayanim would they read in front of him. The Islam must say they were scared of him. That Rav Nachman he was a head honcho. He was the son-in-law of the Beit Nesiah. He was very close to the government, and therefore the people, the Sifrei Dayanim, who were working for the government, they were scared of his position. Rav Nachman b'Safrei Achrina, or Rav Nachman and Soifim that did not work for the government, or Safrei Dayanim b'Achrina, or even if they did work for the government, and then there's another person that you don't have to be scared of. In other words, you need two factors to read and to sign. One, you needed basically the fear, and a fear because of the position and the person. Lacking one or the other, the person or the position, like for example, if it was the person but not the position because you weren't connected with the government, or it was you were connected with the government but the person wasn't, then no, you wouldn't have the option of reading and signing. When we come in front of him a Persian star, the Avid Bar Koy Shal Goyim, he had a Persian star that would come in front of him that was made in the Goyish courts. It went through the Goyish courts Shal Kutim. There was a Vad of Kutim and the Edom Goyim, and they weren't able to read it. So Makra Lahu, he'd have people reading in front of him, and the Shnei Kutim, and the two people. Zesh they say he wanted to make sure that he wouldn't have one person read because you never know what that person's doing. So you have two people reading, and they wouldn't be in front of him, so he could ascertain if they're both saying the same thing. And Masiach Tumoy, and it was just like on the side where he wouldn't know that they're being slamich upon him. So Magbi Bay, and then he would collect Afilim Mishubadim. So if once it goes through the Arkois of the Goyim, it goes through the Goyish courts. Let me assume it's on the up and up. All you need to read is to make sure that the document says what it says. To facilitate that, if it's Mesiach Lefitumoi, meaning that he doesn't know you're being slamich on him when they read, he's talking, and each one is reading it separately. You go over the guy and say, by the way, what do these words say? But you wouldn't be knowing that you slamich him as a dayan. That would be Mesiach Lefitumoi. Amar Rashi, Amali Rav Huna Bar Nosan, Haki Amar Mema, High Star Parsod, this person star, the Chasimi Allah Sada Yisrael, that Jews are signed on it, not going. The first one was case by Goyim. Here you have Jews signed on it. Magbinim Beim Shabda, you would even collect from properties that have a lien on them, Mushabadim. But I, how can you say that? How can you match star? The Adim do not know how to read the star, and they signed it. Says, well, but the other they do know. I've been a Ksav Sheni Yachal is If you need a star that you can't go ahead possibly and counterfeit, meaning that it wasn't erased. The only way to do this is to have the cloth worked with gall nuts. The Leka says, no, but that fits in the top of the cloth is worked with gall nuts. The last line has to summarize the content of the star. The Shitach Raina, the Leka says, well, no, but they went back and they did. No, it's on the up and up. And if everything's on the up and up, so what's your chiddush over here? And to Gemara, the chol lashon kasha, and you can write a star in any lashon as long as the Edom know what they're signing. Tanina, get shekasu ivris, the get that was written in Hebrew, the Edom Yavanis and the Edom sign in Greek. Yavanis, the get is written in Greek. The Edom ivris and the Edom sign in ivris kasha. So the chayra, why do you have to tell me the case? The chayra is in Fursha Brisa. Says the Gemara, Imeahi, in the Brisa, Havamina Hani Mil be Gitin. After by Gitin, because the Guna will be Makel. Al Bashash Taris Loi, Kamash Malon, the Chiddush telling before is the Afil Bashtar Taris to say it's kosher. Ameshmol, right? Nasala Niyar Chalak, a Baal who goes ahead, he gives his wife a piece of paper that appears to be totally smooth. But Amaloni says to her, Harizekite, this is your get. Migureshes, why? Shechashina and Shema b'mei milin. Maybe it was written with afatzim, and that was erased. In other words, it's nivla in the star. You remember, like if you get a piece of paper sometimes and you take a pencil and you go over it like that, and you'll be able to see the scratchings. So chayish that maybe this was the case over here, and that's why. It says, when you be divorced, Meisivei, how could Shmuel say Yimagurashes? We learned the following: a Baal that gives a get to his wife and says, Harizekitech. When the talto is rakta layam or he takes the get and he throws it into the sea, or he throws it into a fire, or anything that's going to go ahead and destroy the get. Because of Amar Shtar Pasim, who he goes and says, no, it really wasn't a get, it's a Shtar Pasim. Shtar Pasim is the star that you want to look like a rich guy, you'd have a person going ahead right and right. But that's Shtar Pasim, or Shtar Amana, you want a star ready in case you need money, you have the star ready, but never took place. So so if he goes ahead, writes a get, he says it's a get, throws it in the fire, you don't know, then goes back and says Shtar Pasim or Shtar Amana. Who Migaresha, nonetheless, she's still divorced. However, Loi Kol Yimenu Asra, right? And he doesn't have the power to go ahead and asa to say it's not a get. The reason is because there was something written on it. That's why we'll believe it's a get before he destroyed it. Halakha ksav, but there's no ksav written on it low. And you're telling me over here, if you have a piece of paper that's totally blank, it's going to be considered a good get. 1 second, you need something written on it. And if the Gemara kikama Shmuel, when the Shmuel says din neshmegareshes, the bakinanle, you have to check that, right? If there was ksav on it or not. The maya denura, you go ahead, you use you made seva, use paint water. You go ahead, put it over there, and the water will go ahead. The letters will come and they'll become and be elevated. You literally see them. It says when you pull it. If it gets elevated, it's a get. If you like pull it, like lav klamu. So in other words, it's not just pshat, it's a piece of paper that's cholok, and you say it's a get. You did some type of bedika. You went ahead and put some paint over it, some type of water that had paint mixed into it, and it was able to go ahead and elevate and show you that there was letters there. It says, even if you check it, right? How do you know what she's Vladimir Gareshes? It's possible to say Hashtahu the Polit. Maybe only right now it was Polit, but B'Shas when the get was given over, it wasn't. Then the Aiden that no Aiden Masirikati. But right now you're telling me that it's when you put over it, you could see that it was a get. Maybe at the time when it was given in front of the Aiden, you didn't have that knowledge because it was blank. It says Gemara Shmuel Nami Chashina Kamar. Shmuel didn't say it's Vada you get. Shmuel said no what? Shmuel said Chashina Mechayish. Mechayish that's the get. Amravina Amali Amem. Hachi Amaraim Mishmei Ravdimi. Hani Beitrei, he's Edim Mesira, the Yov Gita Kamayu, that the Baal gave a get in front of them. Tzrichel Mekraya, they have to read the get. Mesivei, Harzakitech Lotapla Zraka Liam, Oil Or, Oil Holdav, Ovid, Vachosav Amar, Shtar Pasim Hu, Shtar Amanahu, Nigoreshes, Veloy Kolimena Loisra, the Yamet Tzrichel Mekraya, Bossa the Kraya, Mimatzi Amalahachi. If they had to read the get, the Edim Mesira, how can the guy say it was a Shtar Pasim? How can he say it's a Shtar Amana? Obviously, they read the get, they know it's a get. So what's your case? But the boss of the Kruya, what happened? After they read the get, he went ahead and took it back. And maybe, he made a switcheroo. Maybe he went ahead and in his sleeve, he kept the get and he threw the shtaramana, something else. So that he went ahead and made a switch, mashmalan, that he's not believed. We'll stop over here. Have a great day, everybody.